Hey guys, what's up? It's Allison, and today I'm coming at you with my October-November wrap-up. In that time span, I read 12 books. So that's kind of nice, a nice amount of books to be talking about. I didn't want to talk about anything in October because I felt like I didn't have that many books to talk about, and then I kind of started picking up the pace in November. So we're going to talk about a lot of spooky books that I read in October, and then we're going to talk about, just a bunch of stuff. So bear with me while I try to remember what these books are about and explain. So we're going to start with October, the first book I read in October, which was Lightlark by Alex Astor. And to be completely honest, I feel like I read this book literally a lifetime ago. I gave this book a 4.75, and I saw a lot of hate on this book, and I really don't understand why. I get it's like just a standalone type of book, and it's kind of like I heard one person say that it's kind of like a knockoff of ACOTAR, which I can totally see that. But basically this book talks about the main character, Isla Crown, and she is a part of these different a realm. I'm pretty sure it's like the wild realm, or the like wildlife, or the forest realm, or something like that. And there are 6 different realms. Can I remember all of the realms? No, I'm gonna be completely honest. But basically every 100 years, I think, the island Lightlark comes up and rises and appears for only 100 days. 100 days to host a game, kind of like the Hunger Games, honestly. Basically, they are trying to end up sacrificing one of the 6 leaders of the realms so that they can break their curses from the realms. I know I'm not explaining this very much, but honestly, I can't remember a lot about it. All I remember is that I really did enjoy it, and kind of reminded me of like a knockoff Ryson from ACOTAR. I liked the romance. I liked, it was not a lot of romance, but it was a little bit of romance. I liked the competition style. I'm not going to spoil everything for you, but you'll just have to read it to find out. I haven't heard a lot of people, I know this is a popular book, but a lot of the booktubers that I have been following haven't read this. And honestly, I would pick it up. I really like the cover. I think it's pretty neat, and I just thought it was kind of like a cool story. It reminded me of like the Hunger Games or Divergent or something like that. And, I really enjoyed reading it. So I would highly recommend this. And then the next book that I read, obviously, is A Court of Wings and Ruin, which is the 3rd installment in the ACOTAR series. And like I said before, I feel like I read this so long ago, but it was literally last month. This is like almost 700 pages, literally 699 pages. And this follows, and if you haven't read this series, I would skip this portion because I'm kind of going to talk about, obviously it's the 3rd book, so I'm going to talk about a little bit of spoilers here. This talks about Feyre, who's the main character, picking back up in the spring court where she was kind of taken back to by Tamlin, and kind of just trying to figure out what's all going on. There is the King of Hybern, who is going to start a war, and all of the cauldron stuff after her sister's being made Fae from the cauldron. And they're just kind of trying to gather information on what's going to happen with the King of Hybern, because they know something's going on, and they know that there's going to be a war, and they're just kind of trying to prepare for that, secure alliances and stuff like that. I always am going to give this book 5 stars, and I honestly gave this one a 6 stars because it is just as good as A Court of Mist and Fury to me. A lot of people say this is more about kind of the alliances and the war, so it's a little bit slower. And I honestly didn't see it that way. I thought that Rise and Feyre had just as good of a plot in this book, and even like maybe they kind of strengthened their relationship because they were battling through tough times. And towards the end of the book, we get to see, the war play out and things like that. And you know, just a bunch of stuff happens in this book. So I obviously am always going to tell you that I highly recommend this series and you need to read it. I think about this series all day, every day. So I would really recommend you read it. And I'm going to I think I'm going to make a video about this whole series when I get done with the last book that has been published so far, which I'm reading right now. It's taking me a little while, but I mean, there's nothing else to say. I absolutely love these books. I love the covers. I love the characters. And in this book also, there's just so much of a family dynamic, and I absolutely love that group that Feyre has, you know, became a part of. I love it. I literally love it. It's amazing. And then I read, kind of the last 3 books that I read in November were spookier books because I kind of wanted to get in the vibe of Halloween. And the first one of that was No Exit. I wanted to read this book for a long time, and I know that there's a show on it, and I also watched that. But this book I gave a 4.75. Honestly, would I make that? Oh, I think 4.75 is a good rating for it. I honestly thought the TV show or the movie was way worse than the book. I thought the movie was too fast-paced, and this book timed it perfectly for what was happening. But this is basically about a girl named Darby, and she is on the way to visit her mother. It's close to Christmas time, I believe. Yeah, I think it is. She's on the way to visit her mother because her mother's basically on her deathbed, and she had no idea. She doesn't really have a good connection with her family. So she is going to go visit her mother, but she gets pulled over because there is a huge snowstorm going on. She can't continue driving, so she pulls over to the nearest rest stop, and she meets 4 other people, I believe. And, you know, things are, you know, going normal and stuff until she goes outside of the rest stop and finds a kid, a little girl that is being taken hostage or being kidnapped, and she is in a cage in the back of one of these people's cars. So she is trying to figure out through the book, who is it? How is she going to get this girl out? You know, how to not put everybody in danger. And I really liked this. It was a little bit predictable, but also not at the same time. I predicted a couple things, and then I didn't predict a couple things. And honestly, the ending, I was very confused and trying to figure out what was going on. And I think it's just left up in the air, honestly. But I would recommend reading this. I think it's a great book. The movie doesn't do it justice, honestly. Then I read Layla by Colleen Hoover. And I know a lot of people say that Verity is so much better than this book. And, you know, I think Verity is a great book. I rated it 5 stars. But I also rated this one 5 stars because I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I thought it was such a different plot. And I had no idea what was coming. And I don't know. I really, really enjoyed this book. I really enjoyed the story. It's basically about this main guy named Leeds, and he talks about his relationship with Layla, and, you know, just how passionate they are about each other, and how he, you know, he's in love with her. And then all of a sudden a tragic, you know, thing happens to Layla, and, you know, while she is recovering from this, they move into bed and breakfast that they met at. And he starts having encounters with a ghost in the house and starts talking to this ghost. And, you know, it's kind of weird. I'm not going to lie. But then it also, like, makes sense. I don't know. It's just, I thought it was great. I really enjoyed this. And I think it's totally underrated. This book does not get as much recognition as her others. And I honestly think it should because it's a short read and it's very good. So, pick it up. And then the last book I read in November was Survive the Night, and I gave this one a 3.75. And honestly, when I think about this book, I kind of want to rate it lower. But I've read a couple of Riley Sager's books. I really liked House Across the Lake, and I just feel like this book, you know, it's not a long book. It's probably, it's like 320 pages or something like that. But it took me so long to read because I just literally couldn't get through it. the over-explaining, you know, I'm really not into that. I'm not into the over-explanation. And it was just dragging on for me. But, you know, it still was an alright story. It just wasn't for me. So that's how I ended November, which is a little disappointing, but I had a lot of good reads, or October. But I had a lot of good reads in October as well. So, yeah. And now we start out with the books from November. And the first book I read in November was Archer's Voice. And I rated this book a 4.5. Honestly, it might have been a little higher than that. Every time I look back at books, I always kind of change my ratings on this. But I heard that this book was an amazing romance, and Archer was an absolutely amazing guy. And so I decided to pick it up. And this book follows, actually doesn't follow Archer. It follows, is it Bree? It's Bree. And she moves to a small town. You figure out why in the book. I'm not going to explain it. But she's, you know, she's going through it. And she visits this small town where she meets Archer, who is kind of an outcast. He doesn't talk. And the townspeople just basically think that he's a weirdo. And she gets to know him to be more than that, and to be a genuinely good guy. And it's just basically about their romance and their struggles that they face and how they get through it. And I thought it was really cute. I thought Archer was a good character and Bree was a good character, and I did like their romance. So 4.5 for that one. And then obviously, if you know, everybody read this book, It Starts With Us by Colleen Hoover. It ends with us a 5. Honestly, I probably knocked that down a couple points, thinking back on it. But I picked up this book, and this follows Ryle and Lily. And basically, if you don't know what the first book's about, Lily goes through an abusive relationship, and Ryle has always been, you know, her guy, the perfect guy for her. And it just basically talks about, it's just, people say this is an extended epilogue of her happy ending. And there's not a lot of plot in here, but it's just their happy relationship. And, you know, there's a couple new things that happen, and just how she is learning to love again, and also have to face not Ryle. Oh my gosh, I mixed the names up. This book is about Lily and Atlas. Ryle is the bad guy. She is learning to love again with Atlas, while she is also still struggling, you know, kind of trying to co-parent with Ryle and work around that. So I give this book a 4.5. I honestly thought it wasn't anything too special. It was just a happy-go-lucky book. You know, she was just about her love with Atlas. That's just basically all it was about. And I know a lot of people think the same about this book, that it wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible. Then I read Ricochet, and I gave this a 4.75. I really do like the Addicted series. This followed, obviously, Lily again. We got another Lily. And just kind of talking about while Lo is away in rehab trying to get through his alcohol addiction, how she is by herself trying to figure out her sex addiction. They weren't together in this book. They were apart, obviously. He was in a rehab facility, and she's just trying to figure everything out on her own. And it basically talks about that. She gets into therapy. It's just talking about her building herself up as a person. And honestly, I said I gave this a 4.75. I really, really like these characters. I really, really like their relationship and how they go through real problems. Something that not everybody understands, but it's, you know, kind of bringing awareness towards these problems. And yeah. So it's kind of just talking about, can she stay faithful to Lo during these months apart? And yeah. So it also introduces more of Daisy and Reich, and you can tell there's something going on there. And I do know that they get together So we'll see how that goes. I'm really excited to keep going with this and see the family develop. And I heard that the book really picks up around the third installment. So I'm really excited to see what goes on with that. And I love the cover. I think it's really cute. Then I read Twisted Love by Anna Huang, which I gave a 4.8 stars. I loved this book. I feel like a lot of people are about this book, but I really, really enjoyed it. I was really connected with the characters. This follows Ava and Alex Volkov, and he is definitely just a grumpy guy. He's very dominant, very assertive, and he's a businessman, and he's really just not a happy-go-lucky type of person. And Ava is basically just a girl who is, you know, overprotected by her brother Josh. And so Josh is going away for schooling or something like that. Not schooling, but an internship or something. I don't really know. And he asks Alex, which is his best friend, to take care of Ava while he's gone. And, you know, it just talks about the relationship, how Alex loosens up for her, how he, you know, makes some mistakes along the way, but he is literally so good to only her. Like, he breaks out of his shell for her and, you know, becomes a completely different person only for her because they have that kind of bond. I really enjoyed it. I know the series is about all the friends and ties in with that, so I'm really excited to read Twisted Games and get on with the series. I really did like it. You know, it was great. Then I read Court of Frost and Starlight, which I gave a 4.9 stars. The only reason I didn't give this one 5 was because I don't think you're supposed to give this one a 5. I think that it's obviously a novella, and it's an amazing book, but it's not as amazing as the others. This is just basically, I think it's a good wintertime book because it's set around the winter solstice, and it's just kind of like a cutesy little book about their friend group, and I don't know, I loved it. I thought it was really good. There wasn't really a lot of plot going on in this book. We got to kind of say goodbye to Feyre and Rysand as we go into A Court of Silver Flames, which is about Feyre's sister Nesta. And it gives you a lot of different point of views, not just Rysand and Feyre, but Cassian and Azriel and all of the people of the group. I can't remember what their group is called. But, you know, I just like to see the festivities and all that was going on, and see how Feyre behaved as a high lady, and her love for Valaris, which is the town they live in. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. It just made me happy. It made my soul happy. And then I read The Problem of Pain by C.S. Lewis. I don't have a rating for this one because I don't really rate motivational religious books. And they're also kind of harder to understand. And this one was definitely hard to understand for me. But this basically addresses the problem of if we believe in God, and if God's such a great, you know, God, then why does he let us feel pain, and why does he let us suffer? And this book basically addresses that from C.S. Lewis's perspective. I won't go into very much depth, but I think it's very enlightening. You know, it's something that we all think about, and he has a very good way of analyzing that. You really just have to focus. It is a shorter book, but honestly, it takes me a really long time just to understand what's going on, because obviously this book was written a long time ago, and the language is a little different. But, you know, I think it's really good if you're a Christian, wanting to know more about God, or even not a Christian, and you just want to expand your knowledge. This is a good one for you. And the last book of November was Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood. I read The Love Hypothesis earlier this year, and I absolutely loved it. Gave it a 5 stars. And unpopular opinion, I gave this one a 5 too. And a lot of people said it was just so similar to The Love Hypothesis in a negative way, but honestly, I love The Love Hypothesis, so I'm obviously going to love this one. I really connect with the characters, and I feel like I'm literally there. And this is about Bee and Levi and kind of how they get grouped together to work on a NASA project. Bee thinks that Levi absolutely hates her guts, when in reality that is not the truth, and they just go from this enemies to lovers type of plot, and a lot of other things goes on with the project they're working on, and you know, I just loved it. So it's in this cute little pink book. So those are all the books that I have for you guys. I know that was a lot of talking, so forgive me for that. But I will be back on this channel with some more book videos for you guys. And please leave in the comments some books that you've read in the past or books that you recommend for me. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!